Welcome to First Unitarian Church of Orlando. I am Charlotte Kendall, a longtime member of this congregation, and I am glad to be worshiping with all of you today. Leading worship with me today are Reverend Margalie Belizaire, our music director, Aubrey Connelly-Candelario, Larry Watchorn, Linnea Nelson, and Julia Chinnock. And today, we will explore our seventh principle and the interdependence of all existence, of which we are a part. We welcome all to join us as we explore our Unitarian Universalist faith, which draws us into a community of justice seekers with a commitment to lifelong spiritual growth and compassionate service to the community. Whoever you are, whoever you love, you are welcome here, regardless of color, national origin, gender, sexual orientation, age, physical or mental abilities, or economic status. As a Unitarian Universalist congregation, we are a non-creedal community and do not subscribe to a specific set of beliefs. We live by a covenant that encourages ethical behavior, affirms democracy, celebrates the worth of each individual, and unites us in a search for truth in meaning. For more information about our congregation, go to orlandouu.org or email WelcomeTeam@orlandouu.org. And join us after the service in our usual fellowship, where we gather with each other and chat. One of the breakout rooms is the Welcome Center, where you can bring any questions you have about our church. The meeting number and passcode are on your screen, which will be repeated at the end of worship. All are welcome. We have one special announcement today and a date correction for an item from the weekly update. The date for Black Cat Open Mic, as listed in the weekly update, is incorrect. The correct date is Saturday, February 19th. The special announcement is that you are invited to a celebration of life service for my friend Mary Lynn Boris on Saturday, February 19th at 4 p.m. You can find the Zoom link in the weekly update. More information on this service and other announcements for today are on slides before and after the service. All have links in the weekly update or on the website. We're glad you're worshiping with us today.
Please join with me in these familiar words as we light the chalice. In the light of truth and in the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share.
Ooh, so much and so many events for such a tiny month. We celebrate our 110th anniversary this month at 1U. We celebrate Black History Month. We celebrate the Edict of Torda, a landmark for religious freedom which made way for our faith tradition. Freedom to Marry Day was yesterday, as was Founding Day for the NAACP, and so on. And we are invited to widen the circle, to let more in, to be more inclusive. My invitation to you is to try to make space for all of it and to continue to affirm these events long after February 2022 ceases to be a month. And for those who'll be watching the Super Bowl later today, may the odds be forever in your favor. I now call us to worship with Toward a Place of Wholeness by my friend and colleague, Reverend Viola Abbott. We are Unitarian Universalists. When we lift up our 7 principles, some of us think of them as a form of theology, but they are more important to our collective than that. They do not tell us what we should believe. They tell us how we should be. They tell us how we should act in the larger world and with each other. We are brought here today by the fact that Unitarian Universalism has fallen short of the image that was presented to the world and to many of those who embrace this religion. But we are also brought here today by the truth that Unitarian Universalism has shifted a course to move toward a place of wholeness, a place that perhaps never existed for us as a denomination. It has been a long and sometimes unforgiving road to today, but we are here today because we are mindful of the past and because we have hope for the future. We want to practice the faith. We want the practice of this faith to be a fulfilling manifestation of its promise. Open your hearts. Seek new ways of understanding. Come, let us worship together. And now please join me in singing our opening hymn, Let the Whole Creation Cry. The words will be projected on the screen.
Today, our Time for All Ages story is Our Principles as a House of Love by the Reverend Karen G. Johnston. My name is Linnea Nelson, and I'll be reading with Julia Chinnock.
Did you know that love is a really big deal in Unitarian Universalism? I'll bet you did, because we just can't stop talking about it.
Love this. Side with love that. Justice is what love looks like in public. Now, we weren't the first ones to say that. Dr. Cornel West was. But we love it so much that we sing it back to him and to the universe all the time.
There was once a scientist guy who asked all kinds of people, not just Unitarian Universalists, what they thought of love and how important it was for them. His name was Robert Miller. It turns out that all the groups he studied, whether religious or not, UUs rank love as a core value more so than others do.
I guess love really is a big deal for us UUs.
I want you to remember that because we're going to come back to it.
Another big deal in Unitarian Universalism is our principles. They are a big part of our covenant with each other.
We know they are a big deal because we have so many ways to talk about them, to make sure all the different brains and bodies and ages understand them. There's this way, which is really a list in English.
And this way, which is the list in Spanish.
You can even see our principles in languages like Arabic and Thai. Our fourth principle in Thai is Kon ha kwami ta sing yang isara la rapichap.
Oh, thank you, Julia. And there's this way, which is the language for kids.
And there's this cool principles wheel by Reverend Ian Riddle and Kimberly DeBooth, which shows a non-linear way to think about the relationship between the different principles.
So many ways. And all of these ways are focused on the 7 principles. And when Unitarian Universalism first came into being in 1961, there were only 6 principles. Our 7th principle was proposed in 1985, and it was added in 1987. And one other way to imagine our principles was originally suggested by the Reverend Barbara Wells Tenhove. It's called the Keystone Arch. This is like a doorway through which we enter into what our faith calls us towards.
It's kind of cool because the 4th principle, the free and responsible search for truth and meaning, is at the center, holding together the space for us to balance between each individual's inherent worth and the need of the greater community of which we are a part. But do doorways or archways ever exist all by themselves, just floating in air?
Not really, right? They are usually stabilized on the ground, a part of the larger building or structure.
So maybe there's a principle that's still missing.
Well, just like we figured out 35 years ago when we decided the 7th principle was missing. Maybe the principle missing is the ground upon which the doorway is built.
Maybe it's the whole house of love we are always trying to create for ourselves, each other, and the world.
Maybe if we could add an 8th principle, we'll get closer to the beloved community we dream about, where there's no oppression of any kind, where we can say Black Lives Matter, but we don't have to because they already do.
I want to be a part of building the house of love.
I do too. Do you?
Yes.
Thank you, Linnea and Julia. That was really well done. Thank you. And now, as we make space for the joys and concerns of this congregation, I invite you to join in a communion of names and add in the chat names of those who are on your heart this morning, whether due to a joy or to a sorrow. Bring your joys and your sorrows as we come together. Come as you are. Your whole self is welcome in this sacred space we are creating together. We have a note from Jenny Carter, who says, I have to stay off my feet after foot surgery, and I live alone with no family nearby. I am very grateful to the volunteers from Caring Circle for the meal deliveries. Thank you so much. So this is both a concern and a joy, having community around you when you are recovering. And if we could keep on our hearts this morning the family of Ann Cook. Yesterday we had the memorial service here that many of you attended, and these beautiful flowers that we are feasting our eyes on this morning were left behind by Bill so that we would have them this morning as we worship together. And for the joys and sorrows shared, and for those held close to our hearts this morning, let's pray, let's celebrate, and let's send each other healing energy. I now invite you into spoken and silent meditation. Into the Circle by Reverend David Breeden. I will read first this prayer, which will be followed by a moment of silence. We gather into this circle. We gather into this circle of care to dream, to envision, to embody, to achieve the compassion we dream, the justice we envision, the dignity of each in an ever-growing circle of love and justice. May it be so. And now join me in singing our centering hymn, Be Ours a Religion. Words will be on the screen. Then I was standing on the highest mountain of them all, and round about beneath me was the whole hoop of the world. And while I stood there, I saw more than I can tell, and I understood more than I saw, for I was seeing in a sacred manner the shapes of all things in the spirit, and the shape of all shapes as they must live together like one being. And I say the sacred hoop of my people was one of the many hoops that made one circle, wide as daylight and as starlight, and in the center grew one mighty flowering tree to shelter all the children of one mother and one father. And I saw that it was holy. By Black Elk, describing a childhood vision he had while very ill and near death.
We invite your financial support to the many ministries of the First Unitarian Church of Orlando. You can make an offering online to support the many ministries of this congregation. Simply go to orlandouu.org and click the Donate button in the upper right corner, or send a text, or mail a check. You may also support our Share the Plate partner, Coalition of Margalie Workers, by finding a link to their organization in our weekly newsletter. Please let us know you donated by dropping a line to Gabby, our program assistant.
We're all made of rain that fell from the sky. We're each a piece of earth, you and I. We're thankful for this web of life on this little blue-green ball. We're thankful for earth, sky, and sea, and mending this web is up to you and me. What once was you is now a part of me, and it turns out we're related to broccoli. We're thankful for this web of life on this little blue-green ball. We're thankful for earth, sky, and sea, and mending this web is up to you and me. This earth is one big living thing. A life has one song to sing. The Spirit, Mother Nature gives the harmony of all that lives. Think about your life, think about this day. We can't let life on earth just go away. We're thankful for this web of life on this little blue-green ball. We're thankful for earth, sky, and sea, and tending this web is up to you and me.
The manatees are starving. That was the title of a news article I read a few days ago in the magazine Reader Supported News, written by Benji Jones. In the article, it is reported that Florida's manatees are dying in record numbers. I suppose as Floridians, you might know this already. The article notes, in parts of eastern Florida, seagrass, the primary food for these hulking marine animals, is disappearing. Last year, Florida lost a record 1,100 manatees. That's more than 12% of the population. And already 130 manatees have died in 2022. Manatees rehab centers across the state are now overrun, and more animals keep arriving with visible signs of starvation. Florida is running out of physical space to house manatees in need of care. So why is this much-loved creature that is possibly the linchpin of the eco-tourist industry and of the ecosystem itself starving to death? The article further noted that the mass die-off of a cherished species that's closely watched and meticulously cared for is a symptom of bigger problems that are plaguing many ocean environments. Coastal development is one of those problems, as is pollution. More than a decade of human impacts has weakened the entire ecosystem, making manatees far more vulnerable to threats, starting with a plague of algae. Meadows of seagrass are quite important in any coastal ecosystem. They prevent erosion, clean the water, and provide shelter for fish that are a crucial part of Florida's economy, and for a wide range of animals, including manatees. Those meadows are food. Those seagrass, are food. Algae poses a problem because seagrasses need sunlight to grow. Coastal development brings with it pollution from septic discharge and farm runoff, and those things, they nourish algae, making algae becoming abundant. Therefore, they block the light that would reach down to the lagoon to the seagrasses that need this light. When the seagrass dies, it becomes more food for the algae, compounding the problem. So, with more algae and pollution, it means less grass to grow for the manatees to eat. And the poor animals can't escape to richer pasture because it's chilly outside their habitats. Manatees cannot live in water of temperature below 68 degrees. I wanted to start with this story as we explore our seventh principle because it effectively demonstrates the interdependence that this principle speaks of. That is, we affirm and promote respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. In the case of the Florida manatee that is starving to death, we see this interdependence at play. I would say, though, that the respect that we're encouraged to have is missing in this situation. Coastal development and pollution cause an overgrowth of algae. The algae and pollution prevent light from reaching the seagrasses at the bottom of the lagoon, which then cause seagrass to die out. And with the shortage of this primary source of food for sustenance, the Florida manatee are starving to death in record number. And since this much-loved creature is at the center of the ecotourism industry, their disappearance will undoubtedly, if it hasn't already, negatively impact this industry. This will affect the ability of many to take care of many who work in this industry to take care of themselves and their families. And as is generally the case in these situations, it is those who are already economically disenfranchised and people of color and others in the margins who are hit the hardest. The seventh principle calls us to see ourselves as part of a system that we depend on, which also depends on us. We ought not to see ourselves at the center, and all who make up non-human nature exist to serve our needs. Aldo Leopold, in his book, calls for a land ethic where humanity understands itself a co-equal of a land's community rather than promoting dominion over all creation. He also encourages developing right relations between humanity and the land, non-human animals and plants. He contended that we, human beings, have little understanding of how the natural world works, and that ignorance undermines our ability to be in right relation with the world we live in. The seventh principle seems to support Leopold's ideas and calls us to environmental justice. We are called to let our decision-making be guided by our values. We are called to be accountable to how we use the earth and engage its other inhabitants humans and non-humans alike. It's important to address our engagement with other humans too when speaking of this principle, because we're talking about interconnectedness to one another, and that we depend on one another for survival. One person can't do it alone, no matter how much we believe in individualism. Something else that's important to lift up, specifically with the invitation to fight for environmental justice, is intersectionality. As I've heard it said, we don't live one-issue lives. That is to say that social justice issues are intertwined. One justice doesn't sit quietly in its little lane and doesn't intersect with other justice. Those issues overlapped and they have touching points. If you remember, for example, in the manatees story that I've just recounted to you, I mentioned how their situation also impacts the already economically challenged and other marginalized folks. So this environmental justice issue intersects with economic justice, racial justice, gender justice, and so on. As Reverend Forrest Gilmore notes, our seventh principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence, is a glorious statement. Yet, we make a profound mistake when we limit it merely to an environmental idea. It is so much more. It is our response to the great danger of both individualism and oppression. It is our solution to the seeming conflict between the individual and the group. Our seventh principle may be our Unitarian Universalist way of coming to fully embrace something greater than ourselves. The interdependent web expressed as the spirit of life, the ground of all being, the oneness of all existence, the community, forming power, the process of life, the creative force, even God. That interdependent web can help us to develop that social understanding of ourselves that we, in our culture, so desperately need. It is a source of meaning to which we can dedicate our lives. So, speaking of meaning making, Principle 7 shows us the intersection between our spiritual work and our call to social justice. Perhaps I'm keen to this point because of my own personal theology of connection. So in this principle, I see holy. I see what is sacred and spiritual, because it talks of interdependence, interconnection. Sometimes if I close my eyes with intention, with intentionality, I can feel the energy of the other lives, the other life sources that are around me. That's where my theology lies, in that connection, in that space where lives intersect, where our hearts meet, where we can have deep knowing that we are not alone, and live as if we know this, that we know we're not alone. This principle reminds us both of our call to justice and of our need for spiritual grounding. Again, the inner work and the outer work. We need this grounding through spiritual discipline, again, the inner work, in order to show up fully for our social justice work, the outer work. In that vein, I offer this passage by Reverend Kathleen McTeague. Spiritual practices grounds us in something bigger than ourselves. Jewish theologian Abraham Joshua Heschel wrote, "Living is not a private affair of the individual. Living is what we do with God's time, what we do with God's world. We need not believe in God in order to grasp this meaning. We live in a society in which we are often encouraged to regard our living very much as an individual affair, and that delusion is toxic to the health, well-being, and even survival of our fragile planet. We are part of an immense living reality, and the choices we make an impact on that reality far beyond our small field of awareness. Understanding the truth on a spiritual level allows us to make choices in our daily lives and our justice work that aligned our individual actions with the well-being of the whole. We need to cultivate the capacity to bow to that which is so much larger than ourselves, to acknowledge the vast mystery of the universe, and to see ourselves as part of that immensity. There's an essential humility in this. However confused we might be about the notion of God, we are reminded that we ourselves alone are not God. We are connected to and are part of a vast unfolding that we cannot entirely grasp. We do not have to have all the answers, and we do well to remember that. When we approach our justice work with this kind of humility, we become more open to the ideas of others, more capable of being flexible and adaptive, and less egocentric. Knowing on the deep and intrinsic level of our being that we are only part of the whole allows us to collaborate more effectively and to add our unique gifts as part of the whole, which is greater than all of its individuals. Beloveds, we are a part of the web of life. Respecting this interdependence means understanding that we are not the center of it. Let's live as if we have this understanding. Let's answer the call to be accountable to how we engage the earth, our blue boat home, and how we coexist with all of its inhabitants. Let us live gently and yet with purpose in our hearts. Now, join me in singing our closing hymn, Blue Boat Home. Words will be on the screen.
Though below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun my sail and moon my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the wave upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on. Greet the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
Love this song. You won't be alone. We'll be side by side with one another, with people yet to come, with partners we have yet to meet, creating ever-widening, perfectly imperfect, precisely imprecise, circles and ovals and oblong things of beauty as we practice sacred flexibility, welcoming love and healing pain, and demanding justice and saving lives. Go forth and make some new shapes. Reverend Rod Richards. Beloveds, worship has ended, and now the service truly begins.
We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stir